Right, so I'm going to do a second example on completing the square. Now, this example that I'm going to do, the coefficient of x squared is not equal to 1. Okay? So the question is as follows. This will be example exercise 6. That's from the worksheet. Right? So we have got question 6. That's 2x squared minus 7x plus 6 equal to 0. That's the question. Okay. Now, when you have a case like this, whereby the coefficient of x squared is not a 1, okay, you have to make sure that for you to carry on by solving that quadratic equation, by completing the square, you have to make the coefficient of x squared equal to 1. If you want to carry on by using the method of completing the square, you have to make the coefficient of x squared equal to 1. So here, the first step would be to divide each term by 2, because 2 is the coefficient of x squared. So this becomes 2x squared over 2 minus 7x over 2 plus 6 over 2. You also divide the 0 by 2. Okay? Once you do that, you're going to end up having a new equation which is similar to the first one though, overall. So that new equation becomes x squared minus 7 over 2x plus 3 equal to 0. Like that. As you can see, the coefficient of x squared is now equal to 1. The coefficient of x squared is now equal to 1. This equation is exactly the same as that equation. It's just that I've made the coefficient of x squared equal to a 1. Because for you to complete the square, the coefficient of x squared has to be a 1 if you want to solve by completing the square. Then once you get here, okay, you need to be aware that for me to carry on, I don't need this constant here, this constant on the left-hand side. I have to take it to the right-hand side first. So the next step, I have to write x squared minus 7 over 2x is equal to negative 3. Like that. Okay? So you take the constant to the right-hand side, and then you end up getting minus 3. Like that. Then, we now have a binomial on the left. This binomial, we have to add a term in front of it, such that we can create a perfect square trinomial, like this one. I'm sure you can see that there's a minus here. There's a minus here, which means the perfect square trinomial that we need to create must look like this. Must look like this one. And when I factorize it, we have a minus there. Okay? The first example, I had a plus here, and I had a plus. Okay? So for this example, you have got a minus. So to do that, as I told you earlier in the morning, it's not that complicated. All you have to do is look at the coefficient of x. It's negative 7 over 2. So you need to find half of minus 7 over 2. Half of minus 7 over 2. Now, half of minus 7 over 2 is like this. It's minus 7 over 2 divided by 2, like that. Okay? And this is going to be equal to minus 7 over 2 times 1 over 2. And that will give you minus 7 over 4. So, half of minus 7 over 2 is minus 7 over 4. Okay? Half of minus 7 over 2, half of minus 7 over 2 is minus 7 over 4. Once I get half of the coefficient of x, which is minus 7 over 4, I need to add the square of that minus 7 over 4 and also subtract the square of minus 7 over 4. So the next step would be to say x squared minus 7 over 2x plus minus 7 over 4 all squared. Right? Once I add that square of half of the coefficient of x, I need to subtract it. So I'll have minus 7 over 4 all squared. What is the answer here? It's a 0. No. In this case, for a question like this, you have no other option. You are going to create fractions because of the nature of the integers in the question. You are going to create what? Fractions. Yes?
So the minus in front of the, it's like minus and then brackets minus 7 on 4 to the power. Is that a minus or an equal?
This is a minus.
So it's still part of the equation.
Yes. We are saying I added, you see here I added minus 7 over 4 squared. I have to subtract it. So it will be minus, in open bracket, minus 7 over 4 all squared. But the result of this, it's a what? 0. The objective of doing this here is to create the perfect square trinomial. Now, check this. This is a perfect square trinomial. From here, let me use that curve. I can create a perfect square trinomial here. Okay? There. I've got a perfect square trinomial. The first term here, it's a perfect square. The last term is also a perfect square. But I'm going to simplify it. So on the right-hand side, you are going to have this minus 3. Okay? I'm going to have that minus 3 on the right-hand side. Then the next thing now, I'm going to simplify what's inside the brackets. Okay? Your knowledge of fractions is required. You are in grade 11, don't forget that. So your knowledge of fractions is required. So the next step, which I'm going to do on the next page now, is to remove the bracket. So I'll end up having x squared minus 7 over 2x plus 49 over 16. Because minus 7 over 4 all squared will give me minus 7 squared, which is 49, and 4 squared, which is 16. So I'll end up getting that. Right? Minus 49 over 16. This is equal to negative 3. Right? I want you to be aware that in grade 9 and 10, the quadratic equations that you were given, they could all be solved by factorization. Alright? In grade 11, not every quadratic equation can be solved by factorization. Some trinomials cannot be factorized. Okay? That's why there are other techniques of solving a quadratic equation, like completing the step one that I'm doing. I'm going to introduce a second method, quadratic formula. Right? So, be aware of that. So we are there. Okay? Then the next thing, you need to know that your perfect square trinomial is going to be created here. That's where your perfect trinomial is going to be. And the perfect square trinomial, when it's factorized, you get two binomial vectors that are equal. To get those two factors, it's not complicated. Alright? Always, you are going to have x, since there is a minus here, let me use a different color. Because of this minus here, it means my two binomial factors are going to have a minus between them. So this will be x minus what? Half of the coefficient of 7 over 2, which is 7 over 4. So I can put 7 over 4 there. Then I'll square it. So if you get the half of this, the coefficient of x right, that half of the coefficient of x must be inside the binomial factor. Okay? If you use FOIL here, you will come back here. Okay? Then I'm going to take this minus, I'm going to take that minus 49 over 16 to the right. If I do that, I will end up getting minus 3 plus 49 over 16. Okay? Then this becomes x minus 7 over 4 all squared is equal to. Now, minus 3 can be written as a fraction with a denominator of 16. So this will give me 48 over 16 plus 49 over 16. I found the LCD. The LCD on the denominator there is a 1. The LCD is 16. 16 times minus 3 minus 48. 16 times 1, 16. Then
The bracket.
you are talking about this. Yeah, I factorize that. To factorize it, it's not that complicated. You find what is the square root of x squared? This is the x. What is the square root of this? It's 7 over 4. Because there's a minus here, you put a minus between the x and the 7 over 4. And then you're done.
What about the one in the left? Where does it go?
What about the what?
The one in the middle.
The one in the middle.
That's fine.
I talk about this one here. Didn't I tell you, okay, didn't I tell you, okay, maybe I told you what I told you last time. When you have a trinomial, when you factorize a trinomial, the middle term depends on the factors of the first term and the third term. This term here, the middle term, it's an automatic term. It depends on the correct factor, the first term and the third term. So if I get the square root here right, and the square root there right, I put my minus based on that. From my knowledge of a perfect square trinomial, I don't need to worry anymore about that minus 7 over 2x because it comes from the correct factors of the first term and the last term. If I get those factors right, the middle term will come right. So don't stress about the middle term. Get the factors of the first and the last term correct. In fact, if you go back here, I explained the concept of a perfect square trinomial. I explained it. I told you that this x squared, the square root is x. This y squared, the square root is y. Don't stress about this middle term. Do you get that? Do you get that? Don't stress about the middle term because if you use FOIL, you will get it. If I were to ask you to use FOIL here, you will come back to that trinomial. That's the same thing here. The same idea here.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, say the first, when you circle the blue,
Yeah.
the triangle, say the last term will probably be 25 or 60. So when you factorizing it like into the square, it would be x minus 5 over 4.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes. Thank you for that. So you don't stress about the middle term. Don't worry about it. It is automatic based on the concept of factorizing a trinomial. So once you are here, okay, then use your knowledge of fractions there. This becomes x minus 7 over 4 all squared is equal to minus, sorry, it's a plus rather, it will be 1 over 16, like that. Because minus 48 plus 49 gives you a positive 1.
So, well, the last term in the trinomial always be perfect square.
Yes.
It's a fraction. It's a contraction.
Even if it's a fraction, it will be a perfect square. Okay. Then here, you take the square root on both sides. Take the square root then this one here becomes plus or minus the square root of 1 over 16, like that. Remember, if you find the square root on the left, you also have to find the square root on the what? On the right. If you square the left-hand side, you also have to square the left-hand side. Not what? Yeah, don't worry, I'm going to simplify that. I'm not done yet. Remember, I'm doing step by step. So the next step, the square root of this is going to be x minus 7 over 4. So I'm going to end up having x minus 7 over 4. That's equal to plus or minus 1 over 4. Then I'm almost done. I just want to remind you, because this is becoming a little bit new to most of you. Okay? Because it's your first time being grade level. This plus or minus means that we have got two values. Okay? We have got two values. Because it's a quadratic equation, we must get two solutions. So I can write this as x equal to, if I take the minus 7 to the right, I'll get minus 7 over 4 plus or minus 1 over 4. I can split the right hand side into 2 and write it as x is equal to 7 over 4 plus 1 over 4. Or x is equal to 7 over 4 plus, minus 1 over 4. Okay? And this will give you 8 over 4, which gives you x equal to 2. And that one will give you x equal to 6 over 4, which means x is going to be equal to 3 over 2. And then you are done. Now I can tell you now that that trinomial can be factorized from these answers. But I solved it by completing the square. You can go home and try to factorize it. To solve it by factorization, you must come to these two answers. X equal to 2 and x equal to positive 3 over 2. Okay? So I've introduced to you a second method of solving a quadratic equation. Any question?
So you go back to the previous page. No, sir, this is something that I didn't take down. No, that's.
Alright, can you do me a favor? Can I carry on and I'll send you the PDF? Okay. Just listen. If you've got any question, you are free to ask, but you can copy it later.